How's it going, everyone? Thank you for coming by for my continuing review for Hulu's Handmaid's Tale Season 3, Episode 10, Witness. We're finally getting to see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, at least for the children of Gilead. Hopefully, as we saw from last week's episode, June's new mission now is to try to get all the kids in Gilead out of there and into Canada safely. And it seems that her mission starts out like this at the beginning, but it seems to get in the back burner for this episode, dealing mostly with the Waterfords and the Lawrence household. So a lot of things that I wasn't expecting happen in this 50-minute segment. But before I get started with my thoughts on this, tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode? And we only have 3 more left. Where do you think it's going? And with that, since I'm saying this show is almost over, also tell me in the comments below if there's any other shows you guys would like me to review. I have Netflix, Hulu, HBO. I watch a few shows on cable. I have a lot of shows that I plan on reviewing, but please tell me in the comments below if there's any shows that you like to hear my thoughts for. I would be glad to consider it. And don't forget, consider clicking on that subscribe button and the bell in order to hear any more of my future content for your future enjoyment. 2 things I liked about the beginning of this episode was in terms of communication and foreshadowing. With foreshadowing, I'm talking about June and Aunt Lydia when they first get back to the Lawrence's household, and they come to the house and Lydia notices that a lot of the furniture is different, and it's in accordance to the furniture that they've seen in the Washington, D.C. homes. It seems to me, my theory, is that Washington, D.C., Commander Winslow, they're all trying to implement their ways of how they run things throughout the rest of Gilead. And it seems with this furniture being in the house, it's kind of starting there in Massachusetts. So that's kind of a bad thing for these handmaids and June. The other thing I liked was the whole scones and muffins concept of how this is how they communicate with the network. Scones means no, and as you later find out at the end of the episode, muffins means yes. And it was just very interesting to see that, because there's no other way these people can communicate without committing any type of treason. As for the scones at the beginning, we all know it's dealing with the answer to the medication that was supposed to be provided for Mrs. Lawrence. They're no longer providing it for her. But this then leads into the next segment I want to talk about, how June is once again trying to get help from Mrs. Lawrence, this time for the kids, and she eventually leads June to where all these files are of all the handmaids. From there, she finds out the names, where they are, how old they may be right now. So these are the seeds that she's planting that eventually will lead to this exodus that maybe we'll see by the end of this season. That scene there just made me realize that she's becoming this more stoic, heroic figure that we're used to, because she has been a bit selfish, more or less, with her own goal. But now it looks like she's being a bit more selfless and trying to get all the children out. But once that scene happens, she is called to come into the living room of the house, and we find the Waterfords and Commander Winslow there, and that's when her plans pretty much come to a halt. Alright, so the ceremonial sequence, I have to say, is probably one of the most tense, uncomfortable, awkward moments that we've seen so far. Now, we're used to seeing these ceremonies in the past, and we actually saw it in action. Here we don't, but I think it's just as disturbing, because now we have not only one victim, June, but it's also the Lawrences, Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence, because they don't proceed with all these acts that the rest of Gilead is doing. But they have to go through with it, as you all know, because if they don't, it'd be considered treason, and then they all get punished. And as we all know, it's pretty obvious that this is all Mr. Waterford's doing. He is the one that I think wants to get the Lawrences and June in trouble for committing treason, because he's now suspecting things of them, especially after June told him and Winslow towards the beginning that Lawrence respects her. Now, for someone that's the head of a household to respect a handmaid, that's probably inappropriate. So I think that's what that brought upon them infiltrating the Lawrence's household. And this whole thing with him bringing Winslow, it made me think, this brought up a question. Who is the one that is really in charge of all of Gilead? Do we have a president still? I don't remember them ever mentioning that in the last few seasons. Maybe they did and I just forgot about it. But it seems to me throughout the last few episodes and even the last 2 seasons, we see all these different leaders, and we see one higher than the other. By this season, Commander Winslow was apparently the most powerful of them all. But if there's someone more powerful than him, that's one thing that I noticed. But for the time being, it looks like Winslow can be a very powerful influence, and that's why he was probably brought into the household in order to implement anything that may be going wrong, not in the ways of Gilead. But just going back to that whole sequence in the bedroom, it was such a long sequence, but not in a boring way. Very surreal what was going on, because once again, June is enduring this as she had with Mr. Waterford the past few seasons. But here, as I said before, it's a bit different because now you have a commander and his wife that don't do this, but the act must be performed because she is inspected, as we saw, to make sure the act actually happened. I did, though, like the word usage that June had for Commander Lawrence, saying that it was just a transaction, it's just a job. I'm not you, you're not me. This is, think of it from the outside. And I think this is always what she had to do when enduring these ceremonies. And now she's telling Commander Lawrence to do the same. And it's just a very, very unfortunate situation for all three of them. And on top of that, you have Mrs. Lawrence that already has a medical condition. She's not well. Now she's in this locked up room having to deal with this. She's aware of it. She's very distraught, very emotional. So it's just not a good time for all three of them. In regards to the Lawrences, I just hope they just get out of there. I know he's trying to help other people get out, and he tells June, help get my wife out. June tries to tell him, you should get out too. I just hope these two just leave because they seem to be the only ones that were kind of conformed to this new way of life in Gilead, but you can tell they're not agreeing with it. So hopefully not only the wife and not only the children of Gilead leave, but hopefully Mr. Lawrence does as well, because he seems to be a guy that I was kind of for, I was kind of against, for again, but now I think he is probably one of the good guys. But after the whole ceremonial sequence, I have to say one part that just stuck to me the most, I think almost every other person that watches this show also got a kick out of it, is when June and Commander Waterford are talking and he asks her, how is everything? Are you all right? How did things go, pretty much? And she's like, she's okay. And she tells him, at least it wasn't you. The look on his face, I mean, you can tell his ego just dropped to the floor, but this man deserves it. And this is the only type of comeback or any type of retaliation that she can give towards Waterford without being violent or any type of mutiny, but it's a start. And since we're on the subject of Commander Waterford, let's talk about that sequence between himself and Serena. Now, Serena, as you saw, she revealed to him that with the Americans she met while visiting Canada, gave her a phone and offering her help to get out of there. Now, it looks like she's using it to her advantage, but not in a way that the American or the audience would have expected to. Now, this is just my opinion, this is my theory, but I feel Serena is trying to do this in order to just get Nicole back. They're not trying to get out there into Canada and live there. She's just wanting what's rightfully hers, as we originally thought it was going to be for another reason once she got that phone. And the American, that was definitely not his plan from the beginning. He just wanted to get herself out of Gilead. And it looks like Mr. Waterford, it seems that he might be going for this. He didn't really say anything. She just told him that we just have to cooperate with them. So we'll see how this is going to be carried out. But I have a feeling she has other motives in store for us that we're not really aware of. And lastly, we have to talk about the final sequence. Once again, dealing with the whole scones and muffins concept, that scones means no, muffins means yes. June is trying to get help from the Marthas in the network and try to get these kids out. She obviously got her answer, seeing baskets upon baskets of muffins surrounding this table. So now she knows that everyone else agrees with this whole concept of getting the kids out. And she just looks up at the camera, and I just love what she says. She says we're going to need a bigger boat. If you know movies like I do, you know exactly what they are referencing.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
So no shark here, but it was still a great way to end this episode. We get that usual close-up of June, and this time in a positive light. It kind of brings you hope for where the rest of the season is going, and that's something I think we needed. We needed a good ending for once, and this time is for this exodus for this children. So we're going to see how this is carried out throughout the next 3 episodes, but we have a pretty good idea of what the finale is going to be like, and hopefully get a nice idea what season 4 will be about. But once again, everyone, tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode? And as I asked before, tell me any other shows you'd like me to review that are premiering either in the fall or even coming out next year. I already have a few thoughts of what I want to review, but still, I'd like to hear your opinions. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give it a like if you like this review. Don't forget to subscribe to hear any more reviews from me in movies or TV shows. Y'all have a great day. I'll see you later.